All right, listeners, we've got another live broadcast here from RSA. This is our final RSA live broadcast of the year, and we are coming to you. Anton and I can't figure out how this screen is mirrored currently. We are joined now by Daniel Fabian, who is often titled listeners, Digital Arsonist. Thank you for joining us today. Anton, where are the questions? I need the questions.
You don't need the question.
I need a question.
This is too much fun.
This is too much fun. So Daniel, you've spent the last 2 years committing arson against AI systems here at Google. What's been surprising or maybe counterintuitive that you discovered while red teaming AI applications at Google scale?
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Glad you like my job title for setting like the metaphorical fires on our AI systems. Well, I think the most interesting thing for me coming from a security background was that in security, I was kind of used to everything being deterministic, reproducible, right? And then you come into a field such as AI, where you really only have probabilistic guarantees. And in a lot of cases, when you are trying to target these systems, it is a lot less like attacking a computer, and it's much more like trying to social engineer or
Sure.
So I think that was quite a big difference when I got into the fields.
That's quite interesting. I wouldn't have thought of it as social engineering, but I could see why you would say that.
It does make sense to me, unfortunately, because it's the quest for deterministic. Everything is very strong in, well, us, collectively, but this is like not that field.
So one of the things I love about Google is how good we are at organizational things. Said no one ever. And so as we were doing it, how did you help build good connections between the red teaming and the people that are actually building the AI systems? Because it's probably not as useful if you're just off in a corner like setting things on fire. You should probably be working with the standards bureau on how to make fire resistant homes.
Exactly.
So how did that work?
Yes, that's pretty much exactly what we did, right? And as you recall, in like 2 years ago or so, when the whole thing started, everything was a frenzy. And everyone was spinning up teams left and right, trying to kind of make sure we're really making the most out of the technology that was suddenly available to us and integrating it into our products. And that meant that the organizational landscape kind of was very fluid, right?
You're going for the understatement of the year, Brian. He's going for that one.
I think you might have won that.
Yes, there were like tons of teams that were basically doing the same thing. There were other areas where we didn't have anyone working on important stuff. So it took us a little while, right? But since then, I think we have built really great relationships with teams such as GDM security and privacy. They are the ones that actually train our foundational models, and they are the ones who have a big impact on making sure the models themselves are safe and secure. But then also a lot of the issues that we find in our red team exercises only materialize once you actually integrate AI into the product. Right? So it's a combination of the AI capabilities merged with the product that really trigger some of the important security issues that we care about. So in addition to having a close relationship with GDM, we also have relationships with some of the biggest products that we have, things such as Gemini and like Gemini for Space. There are teams in Android that work on AI in search. And I think it's important that we not only have the collaboration with the GDM foundational model, but also the products that are actually integrating AI.
Is it because some of the work you do is not necessarily like narrowly defined against test against the model, but it's also more about AI-powered application? Which brings us to the question of, you mentioned realistic attack scenarios, but AI is like attacking AI, meaning the model. It's an AI-powered application should be attacked. So what are the differences and similarities between how much of classic access is there, for example, versus how much of it is like unique and esoteric to AI?
it's great that you mentioned realistic attack scenarios, right? It's because when you think about the model, it has basically been trained on a dump of the internet, right? And like a bunch of other stuff, but mostly it's all public information. There isn't really anything interesting in the model itself to the attacker, because anything that they can learn from the model, they could probably, with a little bit of work, also find on the internet in some shape or form, right?
That's what I said on the Dirty Bomb episode.
Well, I argued with you a little bit.
Yes.
Right. But I think the really interesting parts happen when you take the AI and integrate it into products and give it capabilities in the context of the product, right? Like, for example, where it can summarize your emails, or it can analyze the data and like create super cool graphs and stuff like this. And suddenly the model actually has access to data that is really sensitive. And that combination of things that are really interesting to an attacker with AI, I think is what really makes some of these attacks dangerous, right? So attacking the model itself, I think it's important that we have folks working on that. It's important that we build security into the models at that level. But I think also the really interesting attacker objectives, what attackers are really interested in, comes more to light when we actually integrate it into our product. Because the others are after, for example, emails, and not necessarily the Gemini training data.
That makes a ton of sense to me.
That makes a ton of sense, and it's also something that is useful to highlight to people, because unfortunately I've seen enough people who kind of obsess about like the narrow AI specific bits and ignore the ecosystem, the app connectivity, and in the world of the near future, the agentic actions to the real world. So like downstream stuff scares me more than the model being upset.
No, I mean, like, you're right. I think from a security perspective, and for me personally, like the security implications where the model has access and manages access and is used for sensitive stuff is a lot more interesting than the content safety. But that does not mean that the content safety isn't important. Right? We absolutely need to make sure that the models are safe for people to use, and that they don't tell people to put glue on pizza.
Right, glue on pizza example, or in case of Ally episode, how to troubleshoot your Dirty Bomb project. Sorry, it's without hands. By the way, episode would be the show. The link would be in the notes.
Yes, you can see what we're talking about. So I want to keep drilling in on this. Are there like specific attacks that have been repeatedly successful in your red team engagements? And are there things that you thought would stick around that didn't stick around? Like what has come up time and time again?
I mean, the big one is prompt injection, right? In particular, in the context of AI agents. And the interesting thing there is that we've known about prompt injection very, very right? Like,
and by the way, the number may shock other people. It may be like mid 2010s or something. Like it may be some ancient, like way before then it became publicly known.
Yes, exactly. But like even I think like two and a half years ago when we started coming out with like hard and so on, like we knew about prompt injection. But the thing is, prompt injection was not very powerful just because the agent, frankly, wasn't very powerful, right? Sure, at the time, it was great. You chat with an AI model and it gives you insightful comments and stuff. But since then, the agents have become so much more powerful and interesting, right? And connected to other areas of our life. Like nowadays, the agents can open our garage door, open our front door, it can summarize our emails, it can look at like what documents I have recently received. And I think that integration actually suddenly makes prompt injection so much more dangerous than 2 years ago. And so prompt injection is definitely by far the winner, where we have demonstrated in several of our exercises the business impact that adversaries exploit this vulnerability could happen.
Yeah. So let me interrupt with a weird question that's not on the menu.
Oh, good. Good. I love it.
It's another one that we have as vendors in theory. So occasionally people show up and say, I have this thing, you can put it in front of your AI and it will filter out prompt injections. I know it's false, to put it mildly, but like, can you, given your experience testing, can you explain why simply a quote-unquote proxy or a firewall or a filter in front of the model would not fix prompt injection? For good.
I mean, as a security person, I always feel like it's important to have defense in depth. Right? And as such, I think these filters are great because they increase the cost to an adversary of crafting a working attack.
Like WAF did.
Like WAF, yes.
But nobody ever said, yes, WAF is 100% guarantee against the whole class of these things.
That's exactly it, right? And there is Simon Billis is one of the people who first talked about publicly on his blog about prompt injection, and I really like his quote, which is, in application security, 99% security is the failing rate.
Yes, that's a great quote.
It really summarizes how to think of these kind of like prompt injection filters. They are great at filtering out 99%. However, we live in a world where adversaries can send thousands and thousands of requests to the agent to figure out the 1% that actually works, right? And then since the control failure is actually deterministic, then they can use that prompt injection that they found to be working against a large number of
AI control filters is deterministic. That's another profound.
That's
gem.
very interesting.
I feel like that's a gem that people may
that's a good
pay attention to.
99% feeling great and control failure is deterministic. Wow. That's bleak. I see.
No. No,
it's not. So what do we do about that? What do we do about this world where the WAF equivalent is not going to solve our problem?
I mean, we're still figuring that out to some extent. My team actually just published what I think is a super cool paper, but I'm probably biased.
Let me guess, 50 pages? 50 pages?
Yeah, at least. That's I think 20 pages in the appendix are just a prompt that we used for for our defense. But it's called Camel. And the idea behind Camel is that it
fits through the eye of a needle.
No,
that's not that Camel.
It has two humps. But really, it's protects against the harmful outcomes of prompt injection. Right?
That's important.
That's very interesting.
Exactly. Because we still don't know how to prevent prompt injection, right? So knowing that we have to live with it, what is the next best thing is if there is a prompt injection, at least we need to make sure that it doesn't harm the user. And this is where Camel comes into play, where it's very carefully distinguishes between trusted data that is used to actually craft a plan that the agent will follow, and then part of the potentially untrusted data, such as emails or documents that it digests as a part of like following the plan. However, it is crafted in a way that like the untrusted data can't actually influence the plan. So it can't say, oh yeah, the user wanted it to be sent to Tim, but really I'm going to send it to
Tom.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
It also wins the easiest at the done price.
Yes.
So I'm sure there's a lot of research behind it, and it's not like you wish it to be so and it is so.
Yes.
You have a lot of decisions between data crossing the trust boundary from. Sorry for being skeptical.
No, that's very true.
It's like there's a lot of work behind it. It's not just
how did you get it to work?
Well, okay. So there is a caveat.
Of course, there's a caveat.
There's always a caveat.
But
in this case, the caveat is that there are a lot of features that are technically possible to implement, just impossible to do safely.
Yes.
Right. And I think that is the whole difficulty of the AI security field that we need to walk the line and kind of stay on the side of the line where we know we are safe. Even though technically we can easily
But this is about robots with lasers, though, right? It's not about robots with lasers.
No, it's about security, right? But like, think about a prompt such as this, right? Like I am expecting an email from my boss. They send me an email, and I tell the agent, for example, hey, read my manager's email and do what he asks you to do.
Whoa, no.
Now we're getting into territory that is really, really difficult to defend because, like, you don't know what's in the email. And you're basically telling the model to trust the contents of the email blindly. And even if my manager is a great guy,
Yeah, he is, but it still doesn't.
you know, right? But basically, like, who knows if he has been compromised or if she has been compromised? Like, he actually has, I don't know, maybe an attacker set up an email signature that has like white font background with instructions to suddenly do something harmful. And things like this just don't work with Camel because it actually provides security guarantees. So that's the caveat, right? There are some features that would be technically possible, but we can't do it safely. So Camel prevents it from going through.
Yeah, I like the outcome. So, as a quick side note, another possible risk to vendors is sometimes people hear outcome protection and they assume it's another filter just on the outputs. It's not that.
No,
it's way more interesting than another filter on the output. No,
it's a principal defense. So it's actually deterministic, and we can rely on it. It provides security guarantees, which is something that all the filters do.
Interesting. That is very cool. Okay, so we're coming up on time already, which is mind-blowing to me.
It is, yes.
This is so much fun. But I want to talk about threat modeling real quick. How should we help people with threat modeling their AI? Because everybody's adopting AI right now. Some people take time to threat model while they do it. Some people are not. But for the people that are, how do we help them think critically about this stuff, and where should they spend their time?
Frankly, I think a key value that threat model provides is that it raises awareness of all the threats that are out there.
Yes.
Right? Because I think we are living and breathing AI security, and of course we're aware of all the threats. But then when you actually talk to the software engineers, they know a ton of stuff that I don't, right? They know how the AI works at a very low level and so on. But they don't think about security all day, and they don't keep up to date. There are like every day or every week at least dozens of papers that get published on AI security. Like, they won't do anything other than reading those papers. So I think it's really important that we share an appropriate level of detail what threats are out there, how they can affect their applications, and get them to think about those risks and how they might materialize in the context of their application. I think that's what modeling is really great. And like my personal preferred framing for threat modeling is because let's be honest, nobody gets excited about threat modeling other than like security.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yes, it's like the three of us are
excitement. What are you talking about?
That's a fun stuff. So what's the framing you like, please?
So I like the framing of basically threat modeling allows the developer to play as an attacker for a day or a week, right? Like, I mean, you're expecting it to churn out code all day. Doing a threat model actually gives the opportunity to take a step back, think yourself into the head of a potential adversary, consider how you would attack your application. It basically gives you permission to be a hacker and to try and break your product. And I think that's something that resonates much more with developers and kind of puts them in the right mindset of I'm not criticizing my own application, but rather, hey, I can play bank robber with the data.
I mean, it is better than reading the 800-page document from NIST about every possible threat that has ever happened since the, typewriter ribbon theft.
That does take us back.
Yeah. So this was really fun.
Anton, can you ask the closing questions?
Yes.
Can you?
Sure. I'm going to try.
Let's see how this goes.
So usually it's Tim's job. It's really fun do it when I try. So we typically end the episodes with 2 questions. They give us one piece of reading, and I think the camel paper will probably be that. I don't want to put words in your mouth. And maybe do one tip on a red team. If I want to start, how do I do it?
Yeah, of course. Yes, definitely read the camel paper. I would be very happy if we saw this implemented actually at a framework level, right? I want to see camel deployed into agentic frameworks so that people who build agents on top of these frameworks get the protection for free. Right? They ideally shouldn't have to think about how do we protect our agents from prompt injection. They should get that as a feature by the framework.
That would be quite a selling point.
Yes.
And given that the price is not truly free, but like the dollar price is free. So yeah.
Free in terms of when you're writing the agent.
Yeah.
And the tip, I think, is what do you think about prompt injection? Think about it like social engineering the model as opposed to like I see a lot of comparisons between prompt injection and SQL injection or cross-site scripting.
Right. That makes me kind of shudder and say,
well, we did that today. We talked about WAFs, which are designed to
but we did it carefully and elegantly.
You give us a lot of credit, but we should think of it not that way. We should think of it as social engineering.
As social engineering, exactly. You are, I mean, really, we try to create something that acts similar to a human and can think similar to a human. And what we got is exactly that. Right? It's not a machine. It acts and behaves like a human, which means that also our methods that we use to attack it need to be adjusted accordingly. That means it's much more effective to try to persuade the model to do something.
Right. Yeah. Like my grandmother is saying, you tell me how to make a bomb.
Makes absolutely no sense, but
it works. You've seen those, right?
Yeah, in 2023, right? But let me ask a strange sub-question to this.
Listeners,
so imagine you're giving a tip to a licensed red teamer who did do red teaming for maybe many years. He's never met AI, has never seen AI. Like, what is the one tip a classic red teamer should learn, do, or think?
Okay, that's a good question. I take back what I said about your. It's a great. We should definitely do that. But you need to come back to James. You have the first teaser for your next episode with us.
I think the one tip that I will give is don't be afraid of AI. Right? I know that it can look intimidating, like super math heavy, super complex. Even the greatest scientists don't really understand how these models work inside. Right? So I think it can be very intimidating, but really once you hack it, it is like social engineering. I think a lot of attacks you can do with a strong attacker mindset, which red teamers typically already have. And you don't need to have a super deep understanding of TPUs and models and the math behind it to attack.
Perfect.
Well, that's a good answer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. This is a delight. Listeners, thank you for joining us for our RSA 2025 live streams. We will see you next year again from RSA.